Welcome back to Library's YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful front twist peplum. Okay, so it has a rope to tie it in the front, and the rope can be tied to the back or to make a bow at the front. It's a very beautiful tutorial and it's simple to make if you can follow the instruction very well. If this is what you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned till the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So to make this front twist design, you need your basic bodice pattern. Like I have a regular basic bodice, no that's nothing. Okay, so this is a full bodice, but I only need up to my waistline because I'll still be adding maybe a peplum or a flare to this. So I'm going to be stopping it at my waistline, but I'm going to be adding like 1 inch allowance for me to join my flare to the main bodice. Okay, so I have it like this, and I'm going to cut off the excess that I don't need. Okay, so the next thing now is for me to do my pattern. So the first thing you need is your nipple to nipple, also known as bust span measurement, which is in case is 8 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 4 inches. So I'm going to be measuring the 4 inches here. Then on my shoulder point, I'll measure it and divide whatever I have by 2, and I'll have this here, and I'll take my ruler and connect from that point to my waistline. Okay, so this is quite simple to make. You just need to follow the guideline. Then on my armhole, I'll measure whatever I have on my armhole also, and then I'll divide it by 2, and then I'll connect that to that nipple to nipple point also. And then on my side, you can divide this by 2 also. You can measure what you have and divide by 2, but I'll just be measuring around 4 inches there, and then I'm going to be connecting that also to my nipple to nipple line. So those are the slash lines that I'm going to be needing, because I'm going to be using slash and spread method to cut this. So now I'm going to be spreading this, and to do this I'm going to be cutting it on my waistline, and then I'll start cutting through my slash lines. So you cut the end but don't cut out completely. So I'm cutting through the lines, and then I'll spread it on a fresh paper. Okay, so before I spread, so that I don't get confused, I'm going to label this my center front, this my side, and this is my waist. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in a fresh paper and spread this on it. Okay, so I have this now, but this pattern does not have an allowance on the sides, so I need to leave some space here to add my seam allowance to it. Then I'll start to spread my slash lines. Okay, so now I'm spreading my slash lines by around 3 inches. You can spread by 3, 4, or 5 inches depending on what you want, but 3 inches is fine for me. So I'll be spreading it and I'm holding it with a masking tape. So I'm just leaving spaces around so that I can add my seam allowance. So I'm spreading the first one, and then I'm holding with the masking tape. So now I'm going to take my tape rule and measure 3 inches, and then place the next line, and then I'm also going to hold it with the masking tape. I'll place my tape rule also and measure another 3 inches, place my next line and mark it like that. Then the last one, I'll also measure 3 inches, as you can see, and then I'm going to be holding it down. I'm just going to, so that it can open up for me very well. So after this now, I'll be adding my seam allowance to my side so that I don't forget. Remember I said I did not add a seam allowance to this, so I'm adding like 2 inches of whatever it is that you want to use as my seam allowance to my side, and then I'm going to be connecting that. So I can't find my curved ruler, so I've connected that now. And then on the center front also, remember we're going to be sewing it. You can add like 1/2 inch allowance or 1 inch if you want. You can add it with it. This ruler has that mark, so I'm just using that. I'm adding ½ inch allowance on the center front so that I don't forget to add, because I'm still going to sew the two center fronts together. Okay, you can also add allowances on your neckline and then on your shoulder point. Okay, okay. So now all my allowances are done. Now the next thing is for me to create my rope to connect my pattern, to tie my front twist. So watch this carefully. The next thing I'm doing on this point here where my slash line stops, I'm going to measure 2 inches downwards. Okay, on that point I'm measuring 2 inches downward, and then I'm going to connect it to that point. Okay, so from this point also here I'll measure 2 inches outwards, which is here, and then I'm going to be connecting that also, like I have like an agonizing on the down part also where my nipple to nipple line stops, which is here. I'm going to be going up by 2 inches. I'll connect that to that point also, and then on that point I'm going to be going outwards by 2 inches also, and then I'm going to be connecting it. Okay, so now because I don't want it too pointy like this, I want to be creating like a curve, and to create a guide for that curve I'm going to just go by 1 inch there, and then I'm going to connect my curve. You can actually use a free hand for this, or you use a curve. You cannot use your free hand, you can just bring your curved ear and then find a suitable curve for it like this. So the same thing here also, I'll go upwards here by 1 inch, and then using my free hand or a curve I'm going to be connecting it like this. Okay, so we have created that pattern. The next thing now is to draw out my bow. Okay, so I don't have too much paper here, I'm just going to be making do with what I have so I can join to it later. So from this point here I'm going to be marking out my straight line like this for my bow here, and then here also I'm going to be marking out a straight line for my bow like this. Okay, so now depending on how long you want your bow, this is around 16 inches my paper stopper, but if you look at the video you'll see that it was tied round this, so you need a long bow for it. So you just need to join a paper to this and then continue as long as you want. So after creating this, now the next thing is just to add seam allowance around it. Remember I've already added my necessary side and center front seam allowance, and my waistline also has a seam allowance of 1 inch already before we started driving. So I just need to add a seam allowance around my bow because I'm going to be sewing it back. So now I'll add half inch. Okay, you can add, but ½ inch is okay for sewing anyway, so just add half inch around it like that, and then we're going to be cutting it out. So that is all the pattern you need. You can see that this is not so difficult, you just need to watch it carefully. You can watch the video multiple times and then you practice so that you know if you get it or not. So I'm adding my ½ inch allowance. You should measure this. I'm just eyeballing it. Okay, and then my allowances are added. Now I'm going to be cutting out this pattern. So using my scissors I'm just going to be cutting around it like this. That's my pattern now, as you can see, and I went ahead to add I think around 10 inches. Okay, let me just measure this to be sure. Okay, so I added 11 inches to my, you can see the sellotape that I used to add it, so that I'll have a longer bow. Okay, a longer rope to tie. So now I'm using this pink doll face fabric for my pattern, and I place it on the pattern like this. I held this with pins and I cut exactly this. Okay, so you need to add the same allowance that you added to your center front. Remember, this part is the continuation of your center front, so I forgot to mention that you need to add the same half-inch allowance to this because you're still going to be using them to sew each other. So now I've cut this out now, and I'm going to remove my pins, okay, so that I can remove my pattern. Removing my pattern, I just want to show us how I'm going to be sewing it. So to sew this now, I'm going to be bringing them together like this, okay, right side facing the right side, and then I'm going to, you can see this part. Okay, let me just explain it like this. You see this part, this where we went inside by 4 inches for our nipple to nipple, this is the part, and this is it on the whole part. So they are going to be matching each other like this. So I'm going to be sewing it like this. That part will match each other, then the curved part that we did also is going to be matching each other like that. And then I'm going to be folding the bow also, and I'll sew everything by half inch. That was why I added half inch around the bow. So I'm going to be putting everything together like this, and then I'm going to sew it with the half inch that I added. I hope that is quite explanatory enough. So now I'm removing my pins, and then I'll go ahead to sew it. So I've removed my pins. Now it will be easier for me to fold. I've removed the paper. So like I was saying, I'm just going to be taking this lower part now, and I'll be placing it on top of this, right side facing right side. You can see that they match each other. This is the part where we went in by 4 inches. If you study the pattern well, you're going to understand it. And then I'm going to be matching the curved part also together like this. I'll pin it, and then my bow also, I'm going to be folding them over each other, and then I'm going to pin everything. Then I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew it, then bring it back to show us. Okay, so as you can see now, I've gone ahead to sew this together. So this curved area that I have here, I'm just going to notch it so that I can relax, and as usual I use the contrasting thread so that we can see my seam lines like this. So after notching this, and then I sew it up to here. So at this point now, you can decide if you want it to be like V shape around this place. You just need to, like we see on our normal belt, you can just cut it V like this and then shape it anyhow you want. So after notching it on both sides, you're just going to pick it up now and then turn it over from the small hole that you have there. So I'm just going to be turning this to the right side. Okay, so they've been turned out now. You can give it a good press later if you want, but I'll just continue. So after turning it out now, you spread it out and look for your center front. You can see your neckline should be your guide. And remember that I added half-inch allowance to my waist after measuring my waist measurement. Though the half-inch was to the half-inch 1 inch allowance, sorry. So 1 inch is for me to sew this together, and then the other half-inch, the 1 inch I'll divide by half, by 2, half for sewing this to my center front, and this other half-inch, the small one here, is what I'll be using it to join it to my peplum. So on the other side also, I'm going to be taking the center front like this together. Then I'll take it to the sewing machine now and place the center front against each other. Remember, we had the allowance on our center front too, and then I'm going to be sewing my center front together like this by the half-inch. Then I'll bring it back to show us. Okay, so this is what we have after sewing it. You can see that the center front has been joined now, and we still have our half-inch allowance to join our peplum to this that we left. So now this is our rope, and this is our center front. So now the next thing now is for me to cut out my back bodice, which I've done, and then I'm going to add my darts. Then I will sew this together on the shoulder. I'm going to be joining the shoulder together like this, and then I'm going to join the sides also. Then I'll open my center back for my side seam allowance. So I'll do all that now. Then I'll take it to the mannequin so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this have been sewn now. I've joined it on the shoulder and also on the side. So to add your peplum to this, you just need to measure what you have on your waistline, and then that measurement you're going to be dividing it by 6.28 for a full flare and 3.14 for a half circle flare. I already have a tutorial on how to cut different types of flare on the channel. If you don't understand this, you may check it out. This is what I have used to cut this radius now, and then I'm using a length of around 7 inches. I'm making this as a peplum top. You can do a full flare gown if you want. Then I'm going to be sewing this now to the waistline. Okay, so I'll go ahead and sew this to the waistline, then take it to the mannequin to see what we have. Okay, so this is our peplum blouse, and you can see this is the same line that we have at the center front, and this is our front twist. Okay, so you can either tie it to the back like I have done. So this is the back. I just sewed it with a pin, and I tied my rope at the back like this. So you can either tie your rope at the back like this, or you tie it at the front to form like a bow. Okay, so you just fix whatever sleeve that you wish to fix to this, and your peplum blouse is ready. And also, if you want to make it into a dress, you just increase the length of the flare that you are putting. I hope you find this tutorial helpful. If it was helpful, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I hope you try this out. You can tag us at LiveBeatrice on Instagram with your tutorial so that you can see what you came up with. See you in the next